Welcome, welcome. In this video, we're going to cover how to create an effective Google Analytics 4 dashboard in Data Studio. This template can be used for all kinds of businesses and organizations. I've used this template for a Fortune 500 company, enterprise organizations, mid-sized companies, and small businesses. So depending on your business goals and your audience, you can use this template and adjust it for your needs. In general, a dashboard provides an overview of key data. Typically, your audience will probably only spend a couple minutes looking through a dashboard. So here we're creating something that will provide an overview for this web property or website. Here we have two examples that are completed, and we'll be creating something similar to these. This dashboard has a little bit more focus on user behavior, while this dashboard has more of an e-commerce and revenue component to it. So depending on what kind of business goals or organizational goals, you can adjust these charts. If you want to see a video on creating a more complete report, drop a note in the comments. The layout of this dashboard uses the ABCs of web analytics. That stands for acquisitions, behavior, and conversions, spanning the entire user journey on your website or web property. I first heard the ABCs of web analytics from Avinash Kushek, who worked with Google as a Google Analytics evangelist. And you can see in the KPIs here, the new users and sessions fall under acquisitions, engagement rate for behavior, and of course conversions and conversion rate for conversions or outcome. And it's the same in our charts here with the channels from which our users arrive, users versus sessions for acquisition, this chart for average engagement time and pages per session, as well as the top user events or actions to fall under behavior, and then these three charts for conversions and revenue, transactions, fall under conversions. So to start off, you can go to your Google Data Studio homepage, and you can either create a blank report or you can use a template gallery. So if you use a template, you can select something from the Google Analytics section, expand that section. Here we're going to go with the Google Analytics Acquisition Overview. So once this loads, click on Add Data at the top so you can choose your GA4 property. For our purposes for this video, click on Demo Account and choose GA4 Google Merchandise Store. And then go to the bottom right corner here and click on Add. Confirm that you want to add this GA4 data source to the report. Wait for it to update. And it should change all the charts and all the scorecards, all the drop downs, tables. Change the data sources for all those elements to the GA4 property. Then click on Edit and Share in the top right corner here. Confirm that you want to add this data to the report. Click on Add to Report. And then it'll bring you to the edit screen where you can configure your dashboard. Now change the title of this report. We'll just call it Google Merchandise Store Dashboard. And we'll do the same here, so you can easily tell what this file and what this dashboard refers to. You can change this logo in the top left corner here by clicking on it, and in the data section, either click on this box here to choose a file from your computer, or you can insert a link for an image. Another thing we're going to add is a text box underneath the title to indicate the data source. So it'll tell the audience that the data is from Google Analytics 4. And let's just spell this out, because not everyone may know what GA4 stands for. Now we can adjust these filters at the top. The date range filter will keep as is, so we can allow the user to select whatever date range they're interested in. But for the rest of these filters, these are all drop-down filters where the user can search for a specific value they're looking for. Let's look at this device category filter. So if they want to look at specific device categories, they can select those or search for them, and they can see a preview of those sessions. So we'll get rid of this event name filter, and for this geo filter, depending on the audience, the geographical locations of your actual users, you can adjust the dimension that controls this filter. So if you, for example, have a worldwide audience, you can change the control field to something like country, or keep it as region. If you have an audience, a user audience that only belongs to one country, you can keep it as region. But we're just going to move the location of this filter all the way to the left here. And this second filter is default, the session default channel grouping. That's a good filter to have, and we'll just stretch the width out here. And then the third filter, we'll also keep this one for device category. But if you want to change the control field, what you'll do is click on a filter, and in the data section, under control field, click on the dimension, and you can search for the dimension that you're looking for. But we'll keep these filters here, as these work well for this template. So that looks good. And now we'll go on to the scorecards. The first thing for these scorecards that we'll do is create a comparison date range. So in the data section, once you select all these scorecards, go down to the comparison date range section and click on that drop down, and you can select previous year, so that way you can compare year-over-year data. This is especially useful and maybe better if your company or your organization has seasonal patterns for traffic. So once you click on previous year, click on apply. Then it'll adjust the scorecard to show these indicators underneath the metric. And now we'll choose the metrics that we want. These will be key performance indicators since they're at the top. Key metrics or KPIs that are important to the organization. We'll keep new users as is so we can see if we're acquiring new users, how that compares over time or year to year. We'll also keep sessions so that we can see how we're doing compared to the previous year for overall traffic. And for conversions, we'll actually move this down the line to the fourth one, but for this middle one, we'll click on the scorecard. Then in the data section under metric, click on conversion and change this to engagement rate. So in Universal Analytics, it would have been bounce rate, but in Google Analytics 4, this is engagement rate, indicating users that engage with more than one page or they take some sort of action, perform some sort of event that you've defined to indicate that they participated in an engaged session. For this metric scorecard here, you can change it to conversions by clicking on the metric and searching for conversions. Or if you have an e-commerce site, you can change it to e-commerce purchases. For the last metric scorecard, you can change this to conversion rate. But for conversion rate, as you can see, there's no metric available for that. So what you'll have to do is create a field, name this conversion rate, and then in the formula, type in conversions divided by sessions. Scroll down and look for the metric sessions. And then for type, change this to %. And that'll create the calculation here for the conversion rate. If you want the e-commerce purchase rate, this is also a field that you'll have to create. Again, create a field. You can call this purchase rate. And in the formula, type in e-commerce purchases divided by sessions. And again, change this type to %. Click on apply. Click outside of this box and that gives us our purchase rate. And we can go to style to make sure that it takes on the decimal precision that we want. We'll just go with 1 and we'll do the same for engagement rate. We have this chart here for top acquisition channels, and this refers to the traffic channels that bring you new users. So if you look at this chart, the way that Google has configured this, you can see that the metric is new users. For this, I'm going to change this to top traffic channels in general and indicate that we're looking at users as opposed to a metric like sessions. And then for the actual chart, we're going to go into the data section and change the metric from new users to active users, and you can also try total users as well. The difference between total users and active users is that active users are engaged users, whereas total also includes users that bounce. But as you'll notice, there's a big segment of users that are unassigned. This means that the channel from which the users are arriving from do not match any of the channel rules for the other channel groupings. Since unassigned is such a huge segment of all users, what you can do is create a calculated field to cluster those into the others category. But for the sake of simplicity, we'll just change this metric to active users, to users that are engaged. Next, we're going to remove this chart, remove these elements down here, and increase the width of these two charts so that they take up about half the entire width for each. Now we're going to change this chart a bit. And click on the chart again to configure the styling a bit. Scroll down to the grid section and change the grid color to something lighter so it's not as conspicuous. And it simplifies the chart a bit. And we'll go to the legend and include a legend on the right side of the chart. Of course, we already have new users and sessions as metric scorecards as our KPIs up here. So alternatively, what you could do is create separate charts for each of these metrics and turn them into spark lines. So really quickly, the way to do that is within the style section, scroll up to the axes section and remove the axes as well as the legend. So you just have these lines, these spark lines for each metric separately, and you can move those to place them under each metric scorecard. But we'll move on and select both of these charts, all the elements associated with these charts, including the title and the background rectangle, copy, and paste. So we have another two charts that we can use, and we'll align them in our dashboard. And now we can create some more charts. These will be our behavior charts. We'll click on this chart and then click the drop down for the type of chart and change it from the donut chart to a time series chart. We can collapse this area and click in the data section. For metric, we'll create a field for average engagement time. So we'll name this metric, and then in the formula, type user engagement, which is a metric in time, divided by sessions. And switch the type from number to duration. Click on apply and click out of this window. And then we can add another metric for pages per session. Again, we'll have to create a field, name it accordingly, and type in views, which is the metric for what we're looking for, divided by sessions. Click on apply, and then click out of this window. And now we'll click over to style. So that gives us a legend within the title. Now for the top user events and actions, we'll expand this area in the top here and change it from time series to table with bars. If your website or web property doesn't have an e-commerce component, you can change this chart to something else, or you can remove it and increase the width of this chart and table to span the entire width of the dashboard. If you do have e-commerce, and if your stakeholders or your audience want to see more of an e-commerce focus, you could remove the top user events and actions table, move these two to the middle row, and then include a table to show top products. So for this table here, the dimension would be item name, and then the metrics would be purchase revenue and item purchase quantity. You can include a heat map for either of these metrics by going to the style section, scrolling down to the column for which you want to create a heat map. Make sure this drop down next to the color option is set to heat map, and the color is set to something where the numbers are easy to read. We'll go back to the data section, and as you can see in our table, there's our summary row enabled, so we can see the total number for purchase revenue as well as for item purchase quantities. So that's how you create an effective Google Analytics 4 dashboard in Google Data Studio. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe, comment. If there's something specific you want to see, leave a note in the comments. And if you're looking for other resources, additional resources, check the description. And we'll see you in the next episode.